Starting this week, more than 200 military doctors will be sent to hospital emergency rooms due to growing medical service disruptions stemming from disputes between doctors and the government. The latest economic assessment shows domestic demand remains weak, and this is hindering an economic recovery. In Paris, the 2024 Paralympics concluded its 12-day journey with a grand finale on Sunday. Team Korea finished with 6 gold, 10 silver, and 14 bronze. It's September 9th, 6 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jongun. We start with the latest on the country's medical sector dispute. More than 200 military doctors will be additionally deployed to address emergency room staffing shortages. Meanwhile, as early admissions for medical schools commence, the Education Ministry has rolled out reversing the planned quota increase as requested by doctors. Yoon has the details.
More military doctors will be deployed to help with the emergency room staffing shortages. The Ministry of Health and Welfare announced that following the dispatching of 15 last week, 235 additional military doctors will be gradually assigned to medical facilities from Monday to Wednesday. Despite some of the military doctors requesting to return and refusing to work as they lack the necessary experience, the government is committed to enhancing training and communication. Meanwhile, South Korean lawmakers are working to address concerns about potential disruptions in the medical system ahead of the Chuseok holiday. Floor leaders of the rival parties met with the National Assembly Speaker on Monday and agreed to work together to bring doctors to the discussion table. This follows a proposal by the People Power Party to establish a joint consultative body involving rival parties, the government, and relevant members of the medical community to resolve disputes related to the medical reform. However, the Korean Medical Association said it is hesitant about participating in the talks as it is demanding that the government scraps its plan to increase next year's medical school quota. The association also reaffirmed its position in a public statement released on Monday, asserting that the only way to bring back the trainee doctors is for the government to fully withdraw its plan to expand medical school quotas. The statement also highlighted the worsening healthcare crisis, noting that without the trainee doctors, not only are emergency rooms overwhelmed, but even the so-called Big Five hospitals are struggling and their remaining staff are exhausted. Amid the ongoing dispute with no clear resolution in sight, the early admissions process for medical schools began Monday, confirming that the government's original plan to increase the med school quota by 2,000 from next year remains unchanged. And with the admission process already underway, the Ministry of Education has stated that reversing the increase would create considerable confusion, so no changes will be considered. Yoon, Arirang News.
Following liquidity crises at e-commerce platforms TMON and WeMakePrice, recently creating massive chaos in Korea, the authorities and the ruling party today unveiled their plans to strengthen measures against harmful trade practices. Our Lee Shi-hu explains what those are.
Soon, online sellers here making profits through harmful or anti-competitive practices will have to alter their sales tricks. On Monday, officials from relevant government ministries and the ruling People Power Party announced new plans to stop e-commerce platforms from exploiting individual sellers and making sales through unethical practices. Until now, it was common for platforms to beat out competitors by giving preferential promotions for their own products, carrying out tie-in sales, and demanding the lowest possible supply prices from sellers. However, all these prices will likely be banned and the platforms will be fined at a higher rate as the administration and the PPP introduce new changes to current rules. The ruling party members of the National Assembly Legislation Committee will introduce changes to 2 current laws, the Monopoly Regulation and Fair Trade Act and the Act on Fair Transactions in Large Retail Business. This will make it fundamentally illegal to cheat customers and legally require the platforms to provide swift payments to sellers while also improving their liquidity ratio. The long-anticipated measures follow nationwide market chaos from early July, caused by liquidity issues at platforms TMON and WeMakePrice. Subsequent government support measures soon after helped sellers awaiting payment and customers waiting for refunds, but there have since been numerous calls for measures for proactive prevention. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
Ahead of President Yoon Suk-yeol's visit to the Czech Republic this month, the country's foreign minister Jan Lipavsky expressed confidence that the upcoming visit will open a new chapter in bilateral relations. While meeting with his Korean counterpart Cho Tae-yeol today in Seoul, he said a South Korean company being selected as a preferred bidder to build 2 nuclear power plants in the Czech Republic was a groundbreaking moment in relations between the two countries. Noting that South Korea is the 4th largest foreign investor in the Czech Republic, he also explained the country currently has a great business environment for Korean companies, adding that it's prepared to welcome Korean investment, particularly on gigafactories, semiconductors, and hydrogen production. North Korea celebrated the 76th anniversary of the regime's founding on Sunday, with key officials visiting the mausoleum displaying the bodies of its 2 previous leaders. But there was no mention of its leader, Kim Jong-un, attending these events. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us why.
The reclusive regime held celebratory events to mark the 76th anniversary of its founding, but with leader Kim Jong-un absent. According to state media on Monday, key North Korean officials, including Premier Kim Dok-hun, visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, where the embalmed bodies of Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, and grandfather Kim Il-sung lie in state. North Korea has been celebrating September 9th as National Founding Day, and Kim visited the mausoleum in 2012, 2018, and 2021, but he apparently skipped a visit this year. The regime also held an outside rally and evening gala in Pyongyang on Sunday. Visiting delegates from an association of Koreans residing in Japan were also among the audience, who came for the celebration for the first time in 5 years. Regarding the regime leader Kim Jong-un's absence from the events, an expert says there is a high chance he could be pondering on ways to deal with domestic issues.
When he is not attending important political celebrations, it could be to give out the message that the leader is mulling over which significant policy direction the regime needs to take. It is highly likely he will later explain what he has mulled over during that time.
When it comes to the possibility of North Korea staging provocations this week to celebrate the anniversary, the expert said it was unlikely.
Because the US is focusing on the upcoming presidential election, North Korea knows it would not be able to get enough attention, even if it stages provocations. Kim would think it is much better to focus on economic development and improving livelihoods during this time.
Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Staying with the regime's founding anniversary, leaders of China and Russia have sent congratulatory messages to North Korea's Kim Jong-un. The North state-run news agency said Monday that Chinese President Xi Jinping, in his message, called for deeper strategic communication and cooperation with Pyongyang, and that Russian President Vladimir Putin said a comprehensive strategic partnership would be strengthened between Pyongyang and Moscow. While North Korea and Russia have drawn closer in recent months, relations between North Korea and China have seen deterioration since the start of the Ukraine war. This is the first message from Xi to Kim since New Year's Day. The latest assessment by Korea's state-run think tank reveals the economy is showing signs of constrained improvement as demand at home remains weak. Our Lee Soo-jin explains.
Limited improvement in economic conditions due to a delayed recovery of domestic demand. This is how a major state-run think tank, the Korea Development Institute, evaluated South Korea's economy in its monthly report released on Monday. It's the 10th consecutive month that the KDI said in its report the economy is experiencing weak domestic demand and stands in contrast to the government's assessment that the domestic demand is showing signs of recovery.
The government thinks that the robust exports will also boost domestic demand, but I don't think this will happen very easily. While this year's economic growth will reach the mid-2% range, most of it will be driven by exports.
The nation's industrial output and consumption both fell in July, reflecting weak domestic demand. While industrial output rose 2.7% from the previous year, it fell 0.4% on month, the third consecutive month that the index has declined compared to the previous month. This was mainly due to production in the mining and manufacturing industries dropping 3.6% on month, the largest drop since December 2022. And retail sales, an indicator of consumer spending, dropped 2.1% on year in July. The value of construction completed fell again in July, dropping 5.3% on year for the second straight month. But exports remained solid on the back of robust demand in the ICT sector. The value of exports in August reached $57.9 billion, rising 11.4% compared to last year. This marked the largest export figure for the month of August on record and was the 11th straight month that exports posted growth. Shipments of 7 out of 15 key export items rose, with exports of semiconductors jumping 38.8% on year, computers a whopping 183.2%, and wireless communication devices more than 50%. Meanwhile, inflation in August also eased to the government's target level of 2%, the lowest seen since March 2021. This came after the consumer price index rose 2.6% the previous month. As for the global economy, the report said that it continues to show moderate growth, mostly in the service sector, but the uncertainties remain due to high interest rates, ongoing geopolitical tensions, and weaknesses in the manufacturing sector. 이수진, Arirang News.
Shifting gears to the presidential election in the U.S. in 3 key swing states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, Harris and Trump are in a very tight race. On Sunday local time, a CBS News poll found that in Pennsylvania, where their TV debate will take place on September 10th local time, both candidates have equal support at 50%. In Michigan and Wisconsin, Harris has 50% and 51% respectively, while Trump has 49% in both states. These states have frequently changed their support between parties, making them important battlegrounds in U.S. presidential elections. Over in the Middle East, 3 Israelis have been killed in a shooting at a border crossing between the West Bank and Jordan, reportedly by a Jordanian man. This comes amid Israel continuing its ground operation in the West Bank. Choi Soo-hyung has the latest.
3 Israelis have been shot and killed on the border between the West Bank and Jordan. On Sunday local time, the Israel Defense Forces reported that a shooter got off a truck and killed 3 people with a handgun at the Allenby Bridge crossing over the Jordan River. The IDF called this a terror attack and said the shooter was then shot and killed by the Israeli forces. According to the Times of Israel newspaper, the shooter was a 39-year-old truck driver from Jordan named Meir Diav Hussein al-Zazi, and 2 of the 3 victims were in their 60s, while the age of the other victim was not given.
What I saw with my own eyes, we were sitting and standing at the checkpoint waiting for our turn after the bus in front of us was searched. There was a bus and a truck in front of us. A man got out and carried out the operation. We bus passengers didn't know what to do and we were panicking.
Israel and Jordan closed the Allenby Bridge after the incident, and Israel also closed 2 other checkpoints connecting to Jordan. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that a cowardly terrorist brutally murdered 3 innocent Israeli civilians. Hamas praised the shooter, calling him one of Jordan's brave men. Since the end of August, Israel has been carrying out military operations in the West Bank, claiming to destroy the infrastructure of terrorism. On September 6th, a 20-year-old Turkish-American woman was shot dead by Israeli forces during a protest. The U.S. has asked Israel to investigate the incident. On September 7th, Turkey called for an anti-Israel alliance, saying that the only way to stop Israel's actions is the unification among Muslim countries. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Elsewhere, Russia's defense ministry said Sunday that it had seized control of a town in eastern Ukraine as it continues its offensive in Donetsk and moves closer to the strategically important city of Pokrovsk. The Kremlin said it had captured a town of Novohrodivka, located about 12 kilometers from the city that serves Ukraine's military as a key hub for rail and road logistics. According to reports, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Ukraine's incursion into Kursk had not slowed Russia's advance in eastern Ukraine and had even weakened Kyiv's frontline defenses. Back here in Seoul, the International REAIM Summit began today, bringing together high-level delegations from around the world for a two-day discussion on responsible use of AI in the military domain for peace and security. Our Kim Jong-un has more.
The REAIM Summit, a platform for global discussions on the responsible use of AI in military applications, kicked off on Monday in the South Korean capital. Following the first summit co-hosted by South Korea with the Netherlands in The Hague, this second summit was co-hosted by South Korea, the Netherlands, Singapore, Kenya, and the UK. South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol stressed the importance of the summit amid rising geopolitical tensions.
Faced with profound uncertainties on both technological and geopolitical fronts, it is all the more imperative that we set the norms and governance for responsible AI to ensure international peace and security and to preserve human dignity.
Minister Cho called for a balanced assessment of AI's impact on global peace and security. He also highlighted the importance of pooling ideas to ensure the responsible use of AI and called for a robust governance framework to establish guardrails. The Netherlands Defense Minister Ruben Brekelmans also underscored the importance of international cooperation.
REAIM shows that we stand united in dealing with current challenges. It represents our shared dedication to develop and deploy applications of AI in a responsible way.
Delegations from more than 90 countries took part in the summit along with experts in the military and AI sectors.
And South Korea is a global leader in technology and is really innovating in ways to use AI and autonomy in the military space as well.
He further addressed why stakeholders need to discuss the responsible use of AI in the military domain.
The technology is widely available. Anyone can go online and download AI tools that they can use. And so I think we need to assume that competitor nations, rogue nations, terrorist groups all have access to AI. And we just need to find ways to ensure that the AI that we're using for defense is better.
On the second day, the REAIM Summit plans to adopt a blueprint for action that aims to outline guidelines for responsible AI governance. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
It is time to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us is our sports editor, Paul Need. Evening, Paul.
Evening.
Let's begin with Paralympics, which wrapped up over the weekend. Team Korea beat its gold medal target.
Yes, that's right. 6 gold medals. That beats their target of 5. And this surpasses the 2 golds won in Tokyo 3 years ago. 3 of the 6 golds came in shooting, with Park Jin-ho being Team Korea's only double gold medalist, winning the men's 10-meter air rifle standing SH1 and 50-meter rifle 3 positions SH1. Korea also won 10 silver medals and 14 bronze, and no fewer than 14 medals came in table tennis, including golds from Kim Jong-un and Kim Gi-tae in the men's singles. The 2024 Paralympics in Paris ran for 12 days and ended on Sunday. Overall, Team Korea finished 22nd in the medal rankings with 30 medals.
And there were more medals won over the weekend too.
Yes, 2 silver and 1 gold won over the weekend. One of the silver medals came in table tennis. Yoon Ji-woo on Friday in the singles WS3 classification after she lost to Andela Mujinic-Vincetic of Croatia in the final 3-2. The other silver came in wheelchair fencing with Kwon Hyo-kyung losing 15-6 to Chon Woo-eun of China in the women's epi category A. The gold was Korea's sixth and final gold, with Kim Jong-un beating Wanchai Achaiwut of Thailand 3-2 in the men's table tennis singles MS4 classification.
Great stuff. Congratulations to all Team Korea's Paralympians. Moving on to golf now. A first senior tour title win for Yang Jongun.
Yes, that's the 2009 PGA Championship winner, Yang Jongun, of course. In a playoff at the Ascension Charity Classic in Norwood Hills Country Club in St. Louis on Sunday, Yang, 52, overcame 67-year-old Bernhard Langer. Both had finished at 13 under par. Yang sank a birdie putt from around 6 feet away, but Langer missed from a bit further out. It was his first win in 72 starts on the Seniors Tour. Yang famously beat Tiger Woods in 2009 and remains the only South Korean to win a men's major title.
And finally, to football, South Korea's men's national team is in action tomorrow night. In a World Cup qualifier. It hasn't exactly been a good start for new manager Hong Myung-bo.
Yeah, I'm afraid not. Korea drew 0-0 at home to Palestine on Thursday, a team that is ranked number 96 in the FIFA rankings. It was quite a hostile atmosphere too, as fans voiced their frustrations with the KFA. It was a game that Korea dominated possession 75% to 25 and had 16 shots on goal, 5 on target. Now the team will look to bounce back when they take on Oman on Tuesday night. Oman lost to Iraq 1-0 on Friday, leaving them the only team in the group without a point so far, with a lot of scrutiny as well surrounding the quality of the playing surface at Seoul World Cup Stadium on Thursday. An away game may just suit South Korea at this time. The third round of qualifying will run until June next year. The top two in the group qualify for the 2026 World Cup.
Right, Paul, thanks for that. See you next time.
Thank you.
It's autumn, but the weather feels like midsummer. Seoul's record for the latest heat wave so far is September 8th, 1935. It rose to 34 degrees Celsius today, making it the latest heat wave ever. Hot weather is expected to continue, so there could be a new record. The heat will not be dampened, and tomorrow will be as hot as today. Tomorrow, the daytime temperature in Seoul will be 33 degrees, similar to today. Tomorrow afternoon, it will rain up to 80 millimeters on Jeju Island and 5 to 20 in eastern parts of Gangwon-do province on Wednesday. There could be around 20 millimeters per hour with thunder and lightning. Tomorrow, Seoul and Busan will start off at 25 degrees. Highs will move up to 34 in Daejeon, Daegu, and Gyeongju. The heat wave and tropical nights are expected to continue this week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.
Children's laughter, hope, dream. K-animation belongs in them. Interesting and valuable story that transcends between everyday life and dream. Surprising spectacle where imagination becomes real. An array of subjects catering from infants to adolescents. For our story to reach all corners of the world. K-animation makes healthy laughter for children. Completely new. But something anyone can relate with. Flawlessly made. And tears that go with it. K-drama. Korea is coming at you with another story to tell.
Hello and welcome to Within the Frame. I'm Handan in Seoul. North Korea commemorated its 76th Foundation Day with large-scale outdoor celebrations and tributes to its late founder, Kim Il-sung, on the eve of the occasion. Amid speculations of a possible military provocation marking the day, the North continued its trash balloon campaign, flying hundreds of them across the border to the south over the weekend for the 13th time this year. This while South Korea and the United States intensified efforts to strengthen nuclear deterrence through high-level talks and joint simulations, actions which Pyongyang slammed as nuclear blackmail. Let's talk more about these stories and their implications to security dynamics in the region with our regular commentator, Dr. Kim Jong-un, who joins me in the studio. It's always great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
And also with us tonight is Dr. John Nilsson Wright, head of Japan and Korea's program at University of Cambridge's Center for Geopolitics. It's great to see you again.
Lovely to be back, as always.
All right, Dr. Go, let's kick things off with you. So North Korea is keeping up the festive mood to mark the state's Foundation Day. It held large outdoor events yesterday, and high-ranking officials also paid a visit to the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun to pay their tribute to state founder Kim Il-sung. But Kim Jong-un didn't show up. What are you reading into this, and also the how Pyongyang celebrated the day overall?
Well, you know, this year marked the 76th anniversary of North Korea's State Foundation Day. So I think the North Korea did was last year they really gave a large scale of festivities celebrating this day, and because in North Korea by tradition they mark anniversaries that are multiple of 5 years with a special care and attention. So last year that happened to be the 75th anniversary of the State Foundation. So incidentally, North Korea was founded back in 1948. And North Korea had like a major air show, some parades and so forth. So I think Kim Jong-un might have thought that this year they could scale down the celebration a little bit, as well as his personal involvement in the festivities, as well as commemoration. And this could be one of the reasons why Kim Jong-un decided to not attend, for instance, the gathering at the Kumsusan Palace, where the remains of the founder of North Korea, Kim Il-sung, as well as his father's remain are modified and preserved there for exhibition. So I think that must have been the reason. Nothing politically significant in that sense. Could be just been essentially Kim Jong-un tried to attach the right amount of attention, not too much, not too little. Maybe this explains why overall the celebration has been scaled down, as well as Kim Jong-un's level of personal appearance today. Yesterday, sorry.
So for those reasons, that's why it was scaled down a little compared to last year. But we still have other big days coming up, right? Like the foundation anniversary of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party on October 10th. And also we also have the November U.S. elections coming up. So we will have to continue keeping a close eye on the North in the next few months. Dr. Nilsson Wright, North Korea sent a delegation to South Asian nations, namely Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand, ahead of the Foundation Day, but not to China. Chinese President Xi Jinping did send a congratulatory message, though, to Kim Jong-un. What's your take on reports that Pyongyang-Beijing relations are starting to see cracks?
Well, I mean, first of all, I suppose we need to underscore the extent to which Kim Jong-un recognizes the benefits of being seen to be increasingly active on the global stage. On the back, of course, of his meetings with President Putin, the latest meeting in Pyongyang, of course. And there's no doubt that I think from the point of view of Kim Jong-un, whether in terms of his ego or in terms of strengthening his links with authoritarian regimes, this is a new game for him. As for the question of China, yes, it's true that Xi Jinping has announced that the Chinese will be seeking to develop a more strategic cooperation, but there's no doubt that there has been real tension between the two countries. It was not that long ago, of course, that the meeting in Busan of the trilateral summit between Chinese, Japanese, and South Korean leaders provoked a somewhat hostile rhetorical response from the DPRK, And the speculation was that Kim was antagonized by the appearance of the Chinese aligning with the Japanese and the South Koreans in their statement supporting the idea of denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. That obviously conflicts very much with Kim's own aspirations, given the strength of North Korea's nuclear arsenal. It also, I think, is important to recognize the extent to which, from Beijing's perspective, however much there is a formal alliance relationship with the North Koreans, sealed, of course, in the context of the Cold War and obviously on the back of the experience of the Korean War, there's no doubt that a more provocative, if not belligerent, North Korea is a real strategic concern for the Chinese because it provides a pretext, if one were needed, for other countries in the region, South Korea and Japan, to increase their military capabilities and to strengthen important trilateral cooperation with the United States. That's very much at odds with China's own interests. There have been reports also that China is calling for the return of large numbers of North Korean laborers who work in China, somewhere in the region of 10,000. That's, if you like, implementing an earlier UN decision that dates from 2017, delayed because of COVID. It will be interesting to watch to see how far that goes. Another, if you like, circumstantial evidence suggests that the bilateral relationship between Beijing and Pyongyang is not as strong as it could be, has been the relative absence of high-level visits between leaders of the two countries and senior officials. It was back in 2019 that Xi Jinping visited Pyongyang. There has been no follow-up visit since then by the Chinese leader. And of course, all of this is happening in a context where North Korea has made very clear that its primary priority in terms of foreign relations is ties with Russia. We've seen that, of course, with support for Russia's war in Ukraine. We've seen it in the material assistance that North Korea has been providing. We've seen it in the form of high-level visits by senior Russian personnel, including the chief of Russia's intelligence services, economic delegations between the two countries. All of this is reinforcing the strategic cooperation. I think Xi Jinping's announcement today is designed to try and reduce some of that tension and provide reassurance to the North Koreans that China is still supporting broadly North Korea's goals. But at the same time, there's no doubt that it wants to try and limit North Korea's provocations. The challenge for China, of course, is that North Korea is not historically likely to, as it's demonstrated in the past, likely to respond well to those sorts of pressures.
So we are seeing some signs of strain in Pyongyang-Beijing relations as Kim Jong-un entered a new chapter with President Putin and as North Korea keeps seeking moves that could go against China's national interests. Now, Dr. Go, North Korea's relentless trash balloon campaign continued on Sunday for the fifth straight day in a row. What is North Korea aiming for? What is it trying to gain from it? And how do you assess the level of South Korea's response?
Well, I think North Korea is trying to maintain a certain level of tension in the Korean Peninsula, and then also North Korea always tries to maintain initiative when it comes to the overall security situation. So I think North Korea knows that this is essentially an asymmetric warfare. It's not easy for South Korea to respond to trash balloons, say, with kinetic force. So North Korea is exploiting this relentlessly, I would say. And I mean, South Korean side, so their hands are tied. And the reason is because the overall damage that the trash balloons from North Korea is causing is pretty minimal. So it's been reported that there's been 51 reports of damages caused by falling trash and debris from North Korea. But then the overall economic damage from this incident only amounts to like less than $100,000 or so. So it could be considered to be big or small. In the overall scheme of things, it's a pretty small figure. And there hasn't been, luckily, no, say, like injuries or like, God forbid, a loss of life from this kind of provocations by North Korea. So this is squares into this overall picture of North Korea maintaining provocation level below the threshold of armed response by South Korea. So I think North Korea is using this in lieu of a much more serious form of provocation, such as a missile test. past. It's been almost like an annual exercise on the part of North Korea to launch missiles for the occasion of major events in North Korea, such as on September 9th, the anniversary of the State Foundation Day in North Korea. But instead, they are sending trash balloons. So you have to weigh the pros and cons of this change of approach by North Korea. It's bothersome, but at the same time, it's keeping the overall level of tension low. So yeah, in that sense, it's a mixed picture. But I think overall, the situation remains pretty much stable in the Korean Peninsula, I would say.
So it's using it in a tactical way. The damage caused by the trash balloon campaign, as you pointed out, is less than $100,000 US dollars. So I guess we could say that's minimal, and more above all, it didn't cause any critical injuries or casualties or fatalities.
Exactly.
And so North Korea is using it in a tactical way. South Korea and the U.S. held a high-level nuclear deterrent strategy meeting in Washington, D.C., where they conducted their first tabletop simulation of nuclear consultative group, better known as NCG. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we see similar drills in the past? What's the significance of this particular tabletop simulation?
So I think it's clearly a difference in terminology. So one is TTX, tabletop exercise. Now we're talking about tabletop simulation. So it really depends on how the stakeholders define what TTS is. And according to both South Korea and the U.S. governments, TTS is essentially an enlarged form of TTS is an enlarged form of TTX. So it involves more simulation, but I think it involves more like a real components, meaning real action on the part of different parts of the military as well as the agencies in the both governments. So overall, the way the governments have jointly described the TTS was that it was like a more like an actualization of the responses, that hypothetical responses to potential North Korean nuclear attack. And this is exactly what the South Korean government has been demanding U.S. governments to do to ensure that the South Korean public and the South Korean nation remain assured by the extended deterrence commitment of the U.S. government. So the idea is that there's like the notion of extended deterrence and also as a nuclear assurance by the U.S. government, and with each step of actualizing the responses for real measures, such as the use, redeploying the strategic assets, such as the nuclear bombers and submarines and so forth. It gives credibility to the commitment that the U.S. government has made to the South Korean government. So in this case, what really matters is not just the scale, but also the frequency of these actions. So you asked correctly that what's the difference between TTX and TTS, but I think going beyond the terminology, I think we should be looking at the frequency of these exercises, and then also as the scale of the same. And so the South Korea and the U.S. governments are expanding both the scale and frequencies, and this shows that there's an investment by the U.S. government in defending South Korea. This message is getting across to the South Korean public and South Korean government, and also to Pyongyang and China. And so all this combined leads to the more of a formation of the commitment, the credibility, and assurance. And I think it's exactly the effect that the South Korean, the U.S. governments would like to have. And in that sense, I think we should look beyond the terminology and more about the content, I would say.
And Dr. Nielsen Wright, North Korea was quick to slam Seoul and Washington's first nuclear tabletop simulation, calling it nuclear blackmail. It vowed to continue to take practical measures for long-term nuclear confrontation with the U.S. What is your assessment of the intensity of North Korea's response? And do you expect further provocations from the North other than flying trash balloons?
Well, I agree with Dr. Go. I think what we're seeing in the immediate response from the North Koreans is to focus on a declaratory, rhetorical rebuttal, if you like. The North has talked of war hysteria in the South and in the United States. They've said ominously that South Korea and the United States will pay a, quote, heavy price for their exercises. But I think the practical reality is that North Korea can't afford to do anything that would really escalate the situation on the Korean Peninsula, which is why the trash balloon response has been the preferred option. But it's important for them to speak tough, if you like, both to reinforce their own deterrence credibility, but also, I think, shore up public opinion at home. We've seen reports, of course, of flooding in the northwest of the country. Kim Jong-un has had to address that issue. I think in the short term, what we will see is probably more of the same in terms of emphasizing military preparedness. Over the weekend, the North Korean news services released photographs of Kim Jong-un visiting a coastal site to talk about the importance of building up the North Korean Navy. There's been a lot of speculation about how far North Korea can go in developing a new class of submarines to enhance its naval capabilities. Kim has talked very deliberately about developing coastal facilities to ensure that North Korea's maritime defenses are reinforced. He's visited an artillery officers training school. There have been photographs of him inspecting maps that seem to suggest a series of tactical and strategic plans that the North Korean leader wishes to highlight. And there's even been, coming back to that kind of perennial question about what sort of provocations the North might engage in. There's been talk of perhaps developing another generation of long-range ICBMs, photographs suggesting that there are new capabilities that may be in the pipeline. President Kim has, of course, committed by the end of 2025, North Korea will have an even more powerful ICBM capability with a range of some 15,000 kilometers intended to strike at the United States and further afield. No evidence to suggest that this is an immediate prospect. And of course, we have on the horizon the November presidential election in the United States. Kim, I suspect, will not want to do anything that might in any way indirectly undermine Donald Trump's prospects as the Republican candidate in those elections. So we will see, I think, more of a war of words and these low-level provocations while doubling down on the commitment to build up North Korea's defense capabilities.
And staying with you, Dr. Nielsen, right? Kim Jong-un appears to have executed several officials, holding them responsible over flood disaster damage, according to Seoul's intelligence agency. What are the implications of this? Is Kim resuming reign of terror?
Reign of terror, I think, is perhaps overstretching the definition. I mean, he is, of course, a brutal leader, and the National Intelligence Service of South Korea has understandably been looking into these reports and highlighting the suggestion that Kim has been willing to exact brutal punishment on those officials associated with the flood damage. It's very hard at this stage to be clear about whether those reports are in fact accurate. We do know from the public testimony of defectors, high-level defectors, the counselor of the North Korean embassy in Cuba recently surfaced in South Korea to suggest that there was a great deal more anxiety amongst senior North Korean officials at what seems to be a more punitive response on the part of the North Korean leadership. Tae Yong-ho, of course, one of the most high-level defectors from the DPRK, formerly deputy ambassador at the North Korean embassy in the United Kingdom and now heading up the very important Unification Committee, thanks to the support from President Yoon. Mr. Tae has himself also emphasized that there are suggestions that more senior level officials from the DPRK concerned about the brutal nature of the regime may be looking at perhaps finding ways to escape from the country. Again, we should take all of those reports, I think, somewhat cautiously, but there's no doubt that this is a regime that is tightly controlled, and Kim's own track record suggests that this is a man who is prepared to exact real and very severe punishments on those officials around him who are seen not to be performing adequately.
Dr. Go, Russia has secured more than 1,500 containers of munitions and other military supplies from North Korea since Kim Jong-un last visited Russia last September. What's your analysis of this, and what do you think North Korea received in return?
Well, there are a couple of things that North Korea gained from this transaction. First of all, it's like a financial revenue, like a payoff that they gained through transferring these munitions to North Korea. There's been recently a study by my own colleagues at the Institute for National Security Strategy tried to estimate the overall revenue stream that North Korea gains through this transaction. And according to the study, it just estimated that North Korea made up to $1 billion by selling these antiquated and outdated artillery shells and weapon systems to Russia. So $1 billion actually is a huge sum of money for a country like North Korea. We're talking about a country of a GDP was estimated to be around 20 billion. So 1/20th of the overall national domestic product was actually created by through the sale of munitions to Russia. And also, overall North Korea's trade level is pretty low. So in a good year, North Korea exports around $3 billion worth of products and services. So $1 billion is a huge money. So clearly, it's a major bonanza for the Kim Jong-un regime. But if we don't see that reflected on the ground and the raising living standards of the North Korean people, chances that North Korea is spending the money to procure weapon systems and components for their WMD program. So this goes to the flip side of the transaction. So the question is, so the 16,000 containers went to Russia. So did they come back to North Korea empty or not? So also it's likely that Russians filled up those containers with something. Could be food, could be other goods, more like a benign source of goods, such as consumer goods, oil maybe. But then also there's some likelihood that Russians fill those containers with weapons and high-tech components to manufacturing missiles, such as the intercontinental ballistic missiles, as well as the submarine-launched ballistic missiles. So this is the dimension of this transaction that we are most concerned about. We, meaning South Korea, the United States, and other like-minded states. So this is something that could be translated to major leap in the North Korea's strategic capabilities in the coming years, something that we are watching very closely.
All right, we have a few more grounds to cover, but due to time limit, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Dr. Go, for your presence with us today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And many thanks to you as well, Dr. Nilsson Wright, as always, for your insights.
Great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in same time tomorrow to join our conversation. Goodbye for now.